Welcome to the John and Heidi Show podcast.
John and Heidi.
Here's John and Heidi.
Today is a special day, Heidi. Do you know what today is?
What is today, John?
I thought you'd never ask. It is Friday, the 12th day of April. Today is National Big Wind Day, National Licorice Day, National Grilled Cheese Sandwich Day, National Colorado Day, National Day of Silence. Oh, we shouldn't celebrate that. And National Teach Children to Save Day. All of those things happening. I have a guest that I'll be joining. He'll be joining me, I guess. If I joined him, I'd just be leaving for the day. James Geary is going to be my guest today. He's got a book called Wit's End. What Wit Is, How It Works, and Why We Need It. I'm a big fan of wit, by the way. I like people that have a good sense of humor, but my favorite kind of person is somebody who has like a little witty remark.
Yeah,
for things.
that'll have like puns. You like puns.
Well, not even necessarily just puns, because I think puns are different than wit. Wit is, like, our daughter has a very sharp wit.
Yeah.
And, we'll be saying
She gets
something.
that from me.
Oh, I know she does. She's half Heidi and half me. That's a scary combination. But she'll have just like the best little response to things. I just think that's awesome. I love wit. Anyway, we're going to learn about it on today's program with James Geary. Wit's End. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show.
Do you have a pretty good sense of humor? You might like this. Early in the morning each day and every day, we share something weird to make people laugh at weirdgiftoftheday.com. You don't need to sign up for anything. You don't even need to spend a penny. Just follow the page on Facebook and get a smile to start each day when we share the weird gift of the day. Not on Facebook? That's okay. You can see the weird gifts on our website too. weirdgiftoftheday.com. That's weirdgiftoftheday.com.
Now, surveys and studies and such brought to you by BetterCreditCards.net. A survey by H&R Block found that the average person has just 4 hours of free time per week. How much free time do you have, Heidi? You think it's just 4 hours?
No, and I think that's an exaggeration because that's not accurate.
Here's what I think it is. I think we keep ourselves busy with things that probably don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you said, I'm working, I don't have enough time to get anything done, and every time I look at your screen, you're on Facebook.
Well, I'm working
So that
on
does not
Facebook.
work, and you have filled your day with things that are not free time.
I've convinced myself that is very important work, Heidi.
And I think everybody has. That's my point.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
everybody has gotten there.
And we have more time-saving devices now than ever in the history of mankind.
But they're time wasters.
But yeah, these time-saving devices, all they really do is help you use your time less efficiently.
Exactly.
This is Surveys and Studies and Such, brought to you by BetterCreditCards.net.
Is your credit card a good fit for you? How did you even get the card you have now? Was it mailed to you? Those are usually the worst cards. They typically have higher fees and rates. Someone has to pay all that postage to mail out millions of cards every day. If you like a better credit card, check out the website BetterCreditCards.net. This is a great place to find the cards that are usually a better fit for you. BetterCreditCards.net. That's BetterCreditCards.net.
And this is Your Brain on Drugs, brought to you by Time4Rehab.com. A Georgia man charged last month with trying to trade meth for an undercover officer for a gun to kill his ex-wife.
Whoa,
that's
a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, he got himself in a little trouble. 56-year-old Charles Henry Skibb, charged with 3 counts, one for accusing of distributing a mixture of substance containing a detectable amount of methamphetamines, another for being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, and another for possessing a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. I don't even know how to say all of that stuff for sure. Anyway, he got himself in all kinds of trouble for doing that. That's not a good plan. Says that he was trying to buy a handgun so he could kill his wife. He said he wanted the weapon to murder his ex-wife and her friend. Undercover officer arranged to meet with him and sold him a .40 caliber pistol, and then he was arrested. So they had to make sure that he really was going to do this, and they really meant it. So that's why they had to sell it to him. Otherwise, it'd be like, well, I was just saying that. I knew you. I was undercover as well, and my own sting operation against you.
That is, I can't imagine
not good.
How he could have made that any worse.
I don't think that's going to help. That's what happens when your brain is on drugs. Now, big screen, little screen, brought to you by ChannelSurferTV.com. Lawyers for Wendy Williams say that her divorce proceedings will reveal just how much money her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, has spent on his mistress. So that's before we were saying, oh, that's too bad they're getting, because they've been married a while, if I remember correctly. We're saying, oh, it's too bad that they're getting divorced. Well, that's why. He had a mistress.
Yeah.
That typically doesn't go well. That's not the kind of thing you want to find out. It's just a bad idea. For those of you who have a mistress, or if you're a female and have a mister, is that what that would be? Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Former Fox News host Greta Van Susteren is returning to television with her own Sunday morning political talk show called Full Court Press. It will air on Gray Television. I don't think I've ever heard of Gray Television.
I haven't either.
I'm not sure what that is. I've got a link to that story if you'd like to know more about the news that's in the news. I've got a link to that in the show notes for today at johnandheidishow.com.
Here's a fun trip back to the 80s.
Surely you can't be serious.
Join us in Las Vegas for 80s in the Desert May 3rd and 4th. Hang out with other 80s fans.
International language of love.
Meet several 80s icons from the movies and rock out to awesome music from the 80s. Flock of Seagulls, The Romantics, Mr. Mister, Scandal with Patti Smythe, Thomas Dolby, Pretty Poison, and more. See the full list of bands and icons at radiotravelgroup.com. That's radiotravelgroup.com.
Now, your scoop of the day brought to you by BetterCreditCards.net. The CEO of JetBlue walked down the aisles of an airplane to collect trash from passengers. That's cool. The CEO, they didn't have to do that. They could have stayed in an office somewhere, but instead they're like, hey, I'm going to walk down the aisle.
Do you tell everybody, I'm the CEO?
I'm going to walk down the aisle right now.
Use that? Can I take that from you?
Pick up some trash. Somebody please get a photographer on standby.
How would they even know who he was? I wouldn't have any idea who the CEO of JetBlue is.
I was just listening. It's funny because I just heard this today. I was listening to a Steve Martin clip from when he was on Saturday, not Saturday Night Live, on the Johnny Carson show.
I love Steve Martin. From
like the 70s or 80s. One of the things he was talking about is he was talking about humor, and he said, these are his words, not mine. He said, I try to appeal to everybody from the trash collector all the way down to the CEOs of companies. And I think it's funny that this story, I mean, what are the odds that I would have watched that clip 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes ago, whatever. And then here it is. The CEO of JetBlue was collecting trash.
Yeah,
I think
well,
that's
good
funny.
for him.
Study by the University of Louisville found that eating raw garlic could help keep Alzheimer's away in old age. So I wonder how old you have to be.
Who would want to eat raw garlic?
I don't know. I've never tried it. Is it good?
I love garlic, but it's got to be in. Just eat it like a clove.
I don't know. You pop it like popcorn. Apparently, I have no idea.
That would be nasty.
So I'm gonna have to check into that because that's an interesting study. Another study. But how did these studies get in here? Usually they go in a different segment because we have a segment called Surveys and Studies and such.
Right.
But these are going to be here. A study by the University of Michigan found that spending 20 minutes per day in nature will reduce your stress level.
That's an old study. We've talked about that one many times, and I agree with that. That's
Did we
absolutely
talk
correct.
about it in nature, or was it in the studio? If we would have talked about it in nature, I'd probably remember it, Heidi. I'm just way too stressed in here. 65 Iowa residents got a pizza chain's logo tattooed on their body in exchange for 48 free pizzas.
For only 48 Now, if it was 48 maybe a year for the rest of your freaking life, maybe.
So 65. I don't know where they got this tattoo on their body, but they, 65 Iowa residents.
48 pizzas.
So this is basically like a year's worth of pizza, but they got a logo of a pizza place tattooed on themselves.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've got tattoos, but I don't know if I'd want to do a pizza logo. Unless it's a cool logo and I love the place, then I'd do it even without the free pizzas. Like if it was something that I really liked.
Like a radio station?
Yeah, if it was like that. I mean, I don't want to talk crazy here or anything, but I'm just saying. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, this is interesting. We don't talk politics on this program, so we don't usually talk about this, but this isn't really about the politics side of it. He's pushing a presidential bid. So Monday, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio visited Area 51.
Okay.
Wait a minute. What? Why in the world? That doesn't seem like a logical place to go while you're trying to run for president. Why would you go to Area 51?
Well, he's all about welcoming aliens.
Would you just? Is he? I have no idea. See, this is why we don't talk politics here. Oh, boy. Her name is Heidi, Heidi. Researchers in Port Everglades, Florida, have captured the biggest female python ever. How long do you suppose this thing is? The biggest female python ever on record.
How long?
Yeah. And how much did it weigh? Just
I'm going to say 700 pounds.
No, it was 140 pounds.
Oh, wow. That's not very big.
Not very impressive. It is a snake, after all, Heidi. We're not talking about a hippo.
I'm a little disappointed.
How long did you think it was? 9,000 feet? It was only 17 feet
I don't know
long.
how big they get. I was going to guess 100 and some feet.
No. You lose. 17 feet long, 140 pounds. That is
that's not that impressive.
That is the correct answer. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show. This is your scoop of the day on a Friday.
Do you have IRS tax problems? Are they keeping you up at night? Afraid to open your own mail or even answer your telephone? If your tax problems are affecting your family life, you need to know you have options. You have rights, and we'll make sure you get them. Call and speak with Mike Habib, the tax expert who will handle your case at 877-78-TAXES or online at myirs.taxrelief.com. That's 877-78-TAXES or myirs.taxrelief.com.
Thank you so much for listening to the John and Heidi Show. We have a special guest joining us today, James Geary. He's got a new book out called Wit's End: What Wit Is, How It Works, and Why We Need It. James, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
I'm a big fan of wit, but how do we explain what wit is?
It's not easy. That's why I had to write a book about it.
Yeah.
I think essentially wit is the ability to think, say, or do the right thing at the right time in the right place. And I think when we think of wit, we tend to think of jokes and someone who's funny, and that is witty. But I think the essence of wit is not necessarily making jokes, but making connections, making surprising connections between things that come from different areas of experience or different areas of knowledge. And the surprise and the jolt of recognition or insight that we get from a witty remark is the thing that makes us laugh or makes us go, aha. And so I think wit is about making those connections and giving things a kind of novel, surprising twist. That's awesome. You've got another book out that's been a New York Times best-selling book. So you've done this before your last book, The World in a Phrase. Is it similar to that, or is this completely different than that? Well, The World in a Phrase is about aphorisms, which are short, witty, philosophical sayings. Like Mark Twain, I never let school interfere with my education. And that's a witty remark. It's also an aphorism. So I think wit and aphorisms are definitely related. And I think the way that, like another aspect of wit that you see really clearly in aphorisms is that they contain some kind of wisdom or some kind of lesson that you can, take with you. And that's why I think we all have those kind of expressions that come to mind. Or, my dad always used to say, little said, easily mended. And that was that's another kind of aphorism, and that was, in a way, his philosophy of life. And we all carry those kind of sayings around with us, whether they're, handed down from generation to generation in families, or if you read something, or if you're a fan of Mark Twain and what he has to say about education is something that you want to keep in mind, whether you're college age or older. And you'd mentioned Mark Twain. He, I think, is somebody who seemed to be very witty. Are there other examples of people that you would say when you look at history that use their wit maybe to the very extreme? Well, sometimes wits get carried away with themselves. They get some, you see that maybe at dinner parties or people who are fond of punning, and they just kind of get caught up in their wit so much that they are looking to kind of push the boundaries and maybe go a step too far. So I think one of the challenges of wit is doing it in moderation, like all things. But someone like Abraham Lincoln, for example, he was a great wit. He was very funny. He loved telling jokes. He loved hearing jokes. And he was also someone, even at the most serious times, was very, very open to punning. There was someone who was condemned to hang a prisoner, and he was President Lincoln received an appeal to suspend the sentence, the death sentence on that person. And Lincoln said to himself, well, if I don't suspend the sentence tonight, he will surely be suspended tomorrow. So even in a very tense, crisis-like moment like that, someone like Lincoln, and I think that's a sign of a really nimble, open, witty mind, which is not necessarily making light of the situation, but someone who is calm enough and in possession of their wits enough to make a that without without not taking the situation seriously.
I remember when I was a child, Ronald Reagan had been shot, and shortly after he recovered and was speaking, he was at an event, and a balloon popped in the room, and without missing a beat, he said, "Missed me." And I thought that was a pretty good example of being pretty witty on his feet. So you'd mentioned Lincoln. Does it seem that maybe being witty really is helpful when it comes to politics?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I think what we don't see a lot of wit in contemporary politics. And again, it's not necessarily making jokes, although we don't really see a lot of witty, humorous politicians today. But even in serious times, like I said when we first started talking, wit is not necessarily about making jokes, but making connections. And if you look at the challenges, the political, social challenges that we face today, they're really, really complicated. Just take, like, the environment, for example, climate change, which is an existential crisis. It involves all kinds of different fields of information and knowledge and politics and society, from science to race to the economy. And to figure out climate change and to figure out how to address it, we really, really need to keep our wits about us, and we need to synthesize all that information. And so I think wit also involves paying attention to other sources of information and, frankly, paying attention to other points of view, not necessarily agreeing with them, but recognizing that there are other points of view out there, and they need to be addressed if we're to address some of the biggest challenges facing us as a country, as a society, as a planet.
Absolutely. Again, James Geary is our guest. His new book is called Wit's End, What Wit Is, How It Works, and Why We Need It. The book's available right now. James, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us about this.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
We're going to throw a link in the show notes for today to make it really easy to find. You'll find that link at johnandheidishow.com.
Is your credit card a good fit for you? How did you even get the card you have now? Was it mailed to you? Those are usually the worst cards. They typically have higher fees and rates. Someone has to pay all that postage to mail out millions of cards every day. If you like a better credit card, check out the website bettercreditcards.net. This is a great place to find the cards that are usually a better fit for you. Bettercreditcards.net. That's bettercreditcards.net.
Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
The first black surgeon to do open heart surgery was Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. It was in 1893. He saved a man who was knifed by opening his chest and sewing together the wound, which was only a fraction of an inch from his heart.
Wow.
He was one of the first to do this. He accomplished this, by the way, without any modern medical devices and no x-rays. So how crazy is that?
Yeah, that's insane.
1893. Open heart surgery. Thanks for listening to this fun fact on the John and Heidi Show.
Here's a fun trip back to the 80s.
Surely you can't be serious.
Join us in Las Vegas for 80s in the Desert May 3rd and 4th. Hang out with other 80s bands.
International language of love.
Meet several 80s icons from the movies and rock out to awesome music from the 80s. Flock of Seagulls, The Romantics, Mr. Scandal with Patti Smythe, Thomas Dolby, Pretty Poison, and more. See the full list of bands and icons at radiotravelgroup.com. That's radiotravelgroup.com.
Now, fear this. It's fun with phobias. Heidi, tell me, what do you think this one is? Parthenophobia. 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 Parthenophobia.
I don't know.
It is a fear of virgins or a fear of young girls.
Yeah, I never would have guessed
that
one.
So, if you're afraid of young girls, you may have parthenophobia.
Huh.
Or you may just be a young boy. I think that's natural. At a certain age, to be afraid of young girls, that's normal.
Huh.
If you're 22 or 23 and you're still afraid of young girls, maybe that's not so normal. Not anybody in particular that I'm talking to. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show.
Do you have a pretty good sense of humor? You might like this. Early in the morning each day and every day, we share something weird to make people laugh at weirdgiftoftheday.com. You don't need to sign up for anything. You don't even need to spend a penny. Just follow the page on Facebook and get a smile to start each day when we share the weird gift of the day. Not on Facebook? That's okay. You can see the weird gifts on our website too. weirdgiftoftheday.com. That's weirdgiftoftheday.com.
Now some weird news brought to you by weirdgiftoftheday.com. Police report that a week after paying $8 million for a private island in Florida in the Keys, a real estate developer was arrested for stealing $300 from a department store. What? He stole some merchandise. 59-year-old Andrew Lippy busted Saturday on grand felony grand theft rather, for swiping some coffee makers, linens, and light bulbs from a Kmart in Key West. He just purchased
I thought all the Kmarts
island.
were gone.
No, a lot of them are closing, but he just spent $8 million to buy an island. Then he got arrested for stealing $300 worth of stuff.
Yeah, that's
home goods.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I don't. He returned. Here's what he did. He bought the stuff, took everything out of the boxes, and then returned it to the store. The employees discovered the boxes no longer contained the items, and that's when he was arrested. $27.99 bed skirt, just a whole bunch of dumb little things.
Wow,
that doesn't make any sense. So he just closed on an $8 million purchase of Thompson Island, a gated island adjacent to Key West. Spent $8 million on an island, then stole $300 worth of stuff from Kmart.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all.
That's why it's today's Weird News. Now your moment of duh, brought to you by FunkyMonkeyShirts.com. Officials in Connecticut said a poor decision was made. Yeah, really? When 24 gallons of gasoline was poured on a baseball field and then ignited to dry the field quicker.
Oh.
What? Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, exactly.
Town officials can't even. They say the game was delayed due to a wet field, and then somebody said, "Hey, I got an idea.
Let's just do this."
And it says here, I quote, "A poor decision was made to dry the field quicker when 24 gallons of gasoline was poured and set on fire. Thanks to our certified spill response team for their incredible help, nobody was injured and no one is in danger."
Oh my gosh.
Police are looking into the, quote, decision to pour the gasoline on the field. The field will likely remain closed for a week while investigators complete their investigation. So
I'm just guessing alcohol was involved.
Probably.
Here.
And do you think it was a man or a woman that thought this out?
I think it was probably a man.
Yeah, it was. I don't even.
I think the women were probably going, this is not a good idea.
What are you doing? Like, oh, hey, we're going to be playing ball in no time. Somebody hold my beer. This is a bad idea. I've got a link to that story. It's in the show notes under Moment of Duh. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show.
Is your credit card a good fit for you? How did you even get the card you have now? Was it mailed to you? Those are usually the worst cards. They typically have higher fees and rates. Someone has to pay all that postage to mail out millions of cards every day. If you like a better credit card, check out the website bettercreditcards.net. This is a great place to find the cards that are usually a better fit for you. bettercreditcards.net. That's bettercreditcards.net.
Now, these three things, Heidi, I have to tell you ahead of time that you have to add the word to the end of these to make it make sense.
Okay.
Because if I don't tell you, then you get all upset with me.
Okay.
You get huffy, like I'm the one doing this to you. It's the These Three Things Council that does this, not me.
All right.
All right. What do these three things have in common? King, horseshoe, blue. I would never get any of this, by the way. The first one I've heard of. King blank.
Pin.
King pin? No. Horseshoe pin? Blue pin? No.
Well,
King,
you said you had only heard of the first one.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
King
crab. You have to get it on a pin when you're playing horseshoes.
Yeah, no. It's king crab, horseshoe crab, blue crab. I don't know my crabs, clearly, because I didn't know the other ones. I've heard of king crab, but not the others.
Yeah,
Thanks
I've
for
heard of king
listening
crab.
to These Three Things. This portion of the John and Heidi Show is brought to you by the John and Heidi Show. That sounds kind of funny, but it's true. Go to your local radio station and ask them to start carrying the John and Heidi Show. Here's the best part. They can carry the show for free. They play a couple commercials, but it doesn't cost them anything every month. So if you know a radio station that could use a little bit of help, send them our way. Send them to johnandheidishow.com. Again, johnandheidishow.com. We would love to do a radio program in your community. Then you could listen to the podcast and listen to us on the radio.
John and Heidi.
We always like to wrap things up around here with good news, and I think this is good news. Oh, there's more good news, too. Since, it's the 12th, we got about 3 weeks before the big trip to Vegas for 80s in the desert.
Coming up quick.
Our good news comes your way courtesy of RadioTravelGroup.com. All of the details there about that trip. Here's a really cool story. A 21-month-old Kentucky girl won the battle against stage 4 cancer after 15 months of grueling cancer treatments. Anybody that's ever had a child that has had any sort of ailment knows how awful it is for a child to have to undergo any sort of medical treatment because
Anything.
you're going,
It doesn't
going
matter what
into
it is.
a big scary building,
Yeah.
all these people coming at them wearing these masks, and you're like, what in the heck? It's hard to understand as an adult, but as a child, it's even worse. Molly Hughes was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma at 5 months of age. Now her family is elated after getting the news that Molly is cancer-free. She said, I kind of fell to the ground after I got off the phone, and I just hugged her for like 5 minutes, her mother Chelsea said. Chelsea shared the good news in a Facebook post. I've got a link to this in the show notes, and there's a picture of Molly walking down the hallway with a bunch of cords and tubes attached to her. She's wearing a little cape that says Super Molly. I love that. That is so cool. It's such a great story, and I want to say thank you to our news source for the good news. I was using a different site before. Remember, every time I'd go to it, it was always like freezing up.
Pop-ups and
Nothing against the Good News Network. They were great people, and I love them, and great news. But every time I would go there, I was like, okay, my computer froze up again.
Right.
So now I'm using one called Sunny Skies. One of our listeners sent this to me. They said, hey, this is a really good place, and I don't have any of those problems. So big thank you to them. I've got a link to them every day because that's where I'm getting my good news. Unless, of course, a listener sends me good news. If you send it, I use yours. Yours trumps the stuff I'm finding online. You can submit your good news at johnandheidishow.com. Time to say goodbye, Heidi.
Goodbye, Heidi.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show on a Friday.